Hi, I'm Jeff Cook with the Monster Truck Museum Hall of Fame. We're going to talk about tires today. This was the tire that started it all out. This was a Goodyear 48-25-20. This is the tire that kind of got everything rolling in the monster truck world. Bigfoot tried these out and put them on a truck, and Bearfoot had them on, and then King Kong had the same tire, but it was a little bit wider. It had a wider thing down the center. It was a 31-inch tall tire instead of a 25. But this is kind of where the whole monster truck deal started. Everybody that seen the trucks with these tires on, you know, this was big. Back in the time, you couldn't really buy tires bigger than about a 38-inch tall tire for a street truck. So this was pretty wild. Okay, this was the next step in monster trucks. This is a 66-43-25. These tires were primarily used for agricultural sprayer vehicles and stuff. They're a high flotation tire. They run low air pressure, and they're made to carry a lot of weight with low ground pressure. So this one here was the Goodyear. We had the Goodyears and the Firestones, and you know, when guys started using these ones, when Bigfoot come out and had these on and some of the other trucks, it just blew everybody's minds. Here's a Firestone. Now the Firestone had a little more aggressive. It had a 43-degree angle tread. They were a little more squared off, but a lot of guys preferred the Firestones over the Goodyears. They had kind of a neater, more square, blocky look to them, but as far as cornering and everything, these would catch a lot more, and they would hook up a little harder and sometimes cause trucks to roll over in the early days, where the old Goodyears had a nice rounded edge you've seen in the last. Okay, on a lot of these old tires that guys get off of the sprayers and stuff, they'll call them a striper, and they'll actually have a war stripe here and one over here. Some of the misconceptions, guys will think that those were rubbing on the fenders or something, but actually this is where the weight is carried on those big sprayer applicators. The bead of the rim is right underneath of that, and actually this wear spot here, when that tire would rotate and go down onto the asphalt, when they drove these big sprayers down the road, that tire would concave and it would scuff like that. Every rotation, the tire would be concaving because they're a low air pressure, so they allow, there's a lot of flex there. So on these stripers, you could tell that this tire was on a right rear of a applicator that was working in the fields, and it had a lot of road time going from field to field on asphalt. So you can see a wear bar here where the tire's scuffing, and then you can see where it was carrying all the weight. A lot of those ag applicators will weigh upwards of 60, 70,000 pounds when they're fully loaded. So they would have either a three-wheeler or a four-wheeler. A lot of the four-wheelers had the little 48-inch tires that we talked about in the front, and then they had these in the rear that carried most of the weight. Okay, for some of the trucks that really wanted to be big and stand out, this was the next step in tires. This is a 73-44-32. Now you can see how much taller this tire is. They weigh almost 1,000 pounds more per tire than the 66 Goodyears. But there was about a dozen trucks in the early days that ran this big tire. They weren't overly popular because of how heavy they was, and they was quite a bit more expensive. But for early car crushing and effect, they were so much bigger than the 66s. They were pretty awesome. And then to crush cars, I mean, these things really put a hurting on a car. Okay, as we are progressing in the monster truck world from just being big and heavy and car crushers to actually race trucks, a lot of guys started cutting and trimming the rubber off the tires. These tires are so thick and heavy that you can knock anywhere from 50 to 100 pounds off of the tire by trimming and cutting, which makes them even lighter for maneuvering, putting them on and off the trucks. And you could actually, like these ones were razor cut, which gave them a lot more traction going forward, not so much going backwards or even sometimes hitting the brakes. A set of tires like this on a wet, grassy surface sometimes could be pretty wild and hairy when you're trying to stop, because when you'd hit the brakes and it would want to hydroplane across the wet surface. But In the racing world, you know, weight means everything. So rotating mass is a lot more than the actual weight, dead weight on a vehicle. So everybody was trying to cut and trim. A lot of times guys, they would cut the bars off, but then they would also take meat out of this center section. This center section on some tires is up to 1 inch thick. So guys would take a 1/2 or 3/4 of an inch out. Worked really good on the race courses where they had dirt ramps and dirt jumps and stuff onto the cars. Not the greatest when you're dealing with fresh cars because of the sharp edges of the steel and everything else. When you're trying to crush a car, sometimes you would cut a tire real easily with them being cut and thinned out because you didn't have near the thickness of the rubber to protect yourself. Hey, if you're liking these videos, follow us or subscribe to our YouTube channel, Jeff Cook Wildman Adventures, or follow us on Facebook. And we're going to do quite a few videos that are educational, and we're going to try to interview a lot of the early monster truck guys and get a lot of neat stories.